Accessible while in the home where children could accidentally fire them. The presence of a gun in a relationship creates an imbalance of power which allows abusive partners to threaten and force compliance on another without ever even pulling the trigger. Gun deaths in total were over 36,000 for 2015, and per capita is only growing. Restricting guns in the U.S. is not the end-all solution. The nation is faced with a complex issue which is influenced by dozens of confounding variables. Yes, mental health and surroundings have a role also. There will still be tragedies. We can't fix a nation's conscience with a law. We can't resolve all tension or violence with legislation overnight. This is a process. Unfortunately, it will take months, maybe years. But we have to start somewhere. And removing dangerous tools of violence from the hands of our citizens is surely the right place to start.
March for Our Lives Ann Arbor was mostly organized by students, college and high school students. There were a few adults that did help. I believe her name was Celeste from one of the Moms Demand Action groups that was involved. But mostly they were there to support the students and support us sharing our voices and our thoughts.
When I talk about the 60s and the role that young people played, I actually like to go back to 1955, which was the Montgomery bus boycott. And for me, the Montgomery bus boycott captures so much that is important in talking about social change, especially in the United States. But in this context, the reason I like to go back to Montgomery is that many of the critical roles in the Montgomery bus boycott were played by kids, people who were like 11 and 12 and 13 years old. For sure, the Columbia demonstrations were a galvanizing event. I would compare them, for example, the first teach-in against the war was held at the University of Michigan in 1965. So fast forward 3 years later to Columbia, that also was a galvanizing event, and then it just sent shock waves to other campuses and other student bodies that they too could essentially intensify what they were doing. These issues and these conflicts about, because there were people at Columbia, for example, who were saying, no, this is too disruptive. We should, write letters to our congressmen, and we should have private meetings with the officials of Columbia University and express our grievances. And other people were saying, no, we're going to sit in. We're going to shut down the campus. We're going to take over. We're going to disrupt the operation of this war machinery.
I think there's a variety of issues. One of the major ones is that the definition of what's sensible gun laws varies widely between who you ask. Some think that the only sensible gun laws would be abolishing some completely. Others believe that the only sensible is sticking purely with the Second Amendment. We have a right, unabridged right to rifles. So there's theories around gun control vary greatly. I think there's a lot in our country's heritage around guns. There's a large number of people they have a strong emotional attachment to them or cultural attachment to them. And so you're not simply overcoming a weapon, you're overcoming this relationship, this part of the culture.
Okay, so what is the impact of activism on the individual is very profound. because, as I talked with you before about, I am not a follower of the teachings of Freud. I am the follower of the teachings of Viktor Frankl, who saw the major motivation of human beings being a search for meaning. Older people have already things to be proud of. They've done this, they've done that. Young people just are entering life, and for them to actually be involved in something that is meaningful makes them feel like grown-ups, that they're in the direction of being a grown-up, that they matter.
I think the March for Our Lives was the beginning. I don't think we probably changed any people's minds that day, because the people that attended the march were people that already believed in our issues. But I believe that it helped build momentum. It got people talking about the issue. It got people sharing stuff about it on social media, talking to their friends about it. It has people thinking about the issue so that they will go out and they will vote and they will plan more rallies, and they will plan. There's been several town hall meetings with representatives that have been planned in consequence of the March for Our Lives.
So that's a kind of roundabout and long-winded way of coming back to this idea of what are the big forces that are in play at this point. And one of the big forces that's in play is the deterioration of everyday life, the deterioration of everyday politics, the humiliation of living in a country where 63 million people voted to make Donald Trump president, and of the danger that that presidency represents every single day, captures the danger of, well, what are the next 50 or 60 years going to bring if we don't change course here? If we don't look at a different set of values and a different set of institution and ways to make economic and political decisions.